What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Signature Sip podcast. I'm here with our Chief Operating Officer and good friend, Michael Gomes. Say what's up, Mike.
What's up? Do I have to take a sip because it's Signature Sip?
Yeah, Signature Sip.
I promise there's no alcohol in here.
Just coffee.
I wish there
Very
was.
good coffee. Willow and Whisk.
Shout out to Willow and Whisk. Amazing coffee.
Amazing coffee. So we're here in our Short Hills headquarters, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the real estate market, and we're going to just discuss a little bit about what's going on, what's happening, a lot of crazy stuff happening on the legal side. But, Mike, how do you feel? I mean, we do about 200 deals per month here at Signature, and you deal a lot with the agents. So what are you seeing in the market?
So right now, and it's funny because there's so many articles out there that are stating that there's a lot of inventory across the nation, but for whatever reason in the Northeast, and I have an understanding of what it could be, but in the Northeast, specifically New Jersey and Connecticut, inventory is still very low. So the buyer demand is very high still. We still have multiple offers on properties. We just had a listing where there was over 17 offers, right? This is just a couple of weeks ago. So we're seeing the opposite of what has transpired across the nation. We still have very high demand, very little inventory. Now, inventory is rising, right? Absorption rates in most counties in New Jersey, and actually in all counties, have gone up, but inventory is still low. Yeah.
So for those of you that, don't know kind of how, the metrics work, when you're talking about absorption rate, it's how much the market is absorbing as far as homes coming off the market. So if the absorption rate is 1 month supply, that means if you stop putting houses on the market right now, how long would it take for that inventory to be absorbed by the market? And if the average days on market is 30 days, then it's a 1 month supply. So across most counties right now, we're still in a seller's market because it's under 6 months. Yeah. And it's actually significantly under 6 months in most counties.
In our county, which is Union County, not obviously where our office operates, but where most of our agents operate, Union County, we're just a little bit over 2, which is still a great seller's market. Yeah,
I mean, anything under 6 is still a seller's market. Above 6 is a buyer's market. And interest rates are down a little bit. You're looking at like 6.5% interest rate for a 30-year conventional loan and about 5.6%, 5.7% for a 15-year conventional loan. So, interest rates are still hovering around those numbers, and we still have a lot of activity. And you're right, New Jersey is still holding really strong. I mean, look, we're the most densely populated state in the whole country. We are right next to New York City, at least all the counties that we work with.
We're a huge attraction for New Yorkers.
Yeah, you're within an hour, right? And I think now, with everything that's going on in New York, with, crime on the rise and all these different things, I think a lot of people are getting out of New York. Yeah. And they're like, if you're going to have a kid or 2 kids, correct, you're not going to live in the condo anymore. You want to be in the suburbs. You want to, have a backyard, and you want to live a little bit of a different lifestyle. So I think that's kind of propping up the market in New Jersey.
Yeah, coupled with the fact that, if you're in New York, let's say Staten Island, Long Island, right, you can sell a very similar home there for a lot more, right? And you could bring that money back to New Jersey. You could buy the same size house, same quality type home, and still save money, right? Or in Manhattan, forget it, right? Obviously. And then, my very good friend, one of my best friends, Nick, obviously you know him, he gave me a very, different perspective. He goes, Mike, you have to understand New Jersey has really good schools in comparison to New York. He goes, the average person, right, that's putting their kids in a school system in New York, they're paying for private school, and it's $40,000 to $50,000. So they rather go to, let's say an area like Summit or Westview, New Jersey, where they're going to pay $30,000 to $40,000 in property taxes, sometimes even a little bit higher. And if they have 2 kids, they're actually saving money. They're saving a bundle of money because it's $50,000 to $60,000, per child to go to private school, right? So if you have 2 kids in a private school in New York, it's $100,000. You go to Summit, New Jersey. But just even the
commute, the traffic,
which is the same right now. Like if you go from Summit to Manhattan, and let's say you go from anywhere outside of Manhattan, it's the same commute. It's 35 minutes. No, I mean
the chaos of bringing your kid to school.
Oh, that too. Yeah, forget it.
In the city, I mean, I can't even imagine what that's like.
No.
I mean, we have like the best life ever. Like we drive Maddie 2 minutes away to school.
Yeah.
Like there's no traffic.
I couldn't live in New York. I think I'd probably go to jail. I would have so much road rage. Like, what do you mean 30 minutes for 2 blocks?
Well, I mean,
I would tell my kid, you got to get out.
It is it's pros and cons, right? Yeah. It's very high stress. And I think when you're a certain age and you don't have kids, I think it's different. But yeah, that's what we see. You know, if we have an open house in Chatham, if we have an open house in Madison, if we have an open house in Millburn and Summit, 90% of the people are coming from either Hudson County, which is, you know, similar to New York, right? As far as traffic,
very densely populated.
Very densely populated, and, you know, same basically everything, right? And then, or people from New York. I mean, those are the two demographics that are coming to purchase those properties. And almost every time, the woman is either pregnant, right? Or they're planning on having another kid. It's typically their second kid that kind of puts them over the edge, because they're not going to get another bedroom and pay X amount of dollars. It just makes sense to come buy a $1.2 million house here, you know, have a backyard, have a garage, you know, and you just live a totally different lifestyle.
Different quality, right? Different quality of life for sure. You know, and again, right, there's also the sanity part, right? You don't have to be in the middle of that chaos. Like, look, and Adriana, my wife, she loves going to New York. Like, I don't, but like New York is not for me. I love being in the suburbs. I like peace and tranquility. She likes to be, you know, in the hustle and bustle of New York. I don't. That's not me. And I know a lot of people love that. But I also feel like as you get older too, and you start having kids, like you mentioned, I think that glam wears off a lot. And you want to be in an area where you can raise your kids, and, you know, you can get more time with your kids, where you're not traveling so much, where you could be home faster, you could be, you know, spend more time with them, cook food and this, that, and the other, spend quality time. I think that, you know, that is something that drives a lot of people to make the decision to leave, you know, a city like Manhattan and go into a Summit or a Westfield or a Cranford, New Jersey, or Short Hills or wherever in New Jersey for you know, I mean, you could pretty much throw a dart in the map. I mean, New Jersey has a lot of great towns for kids.
I thought everything, you know, when they started, you know, mandating everybody coming back to the office, I thought it was going to kind of slow down the New Jersey market, right? Because when, you know, if you have to commute every day into the city, if you got to go into the city 2, you know, days, maybe 3 days a week, it's not so bad. If you have to go every day back to the office and it's mandated, you know, that's kind of tough, and it kind of puts a damper on some of the towns that are a little bit further away, or the commute's not great. You have to drive in or drive to a train station. So I thought that it would change, but it hasn't. You know, I guess the demand is just that much more for housing in New Jersey. And quite honestly, you know, people are buying houses for $700,000, $800,000, even in some towns, you know, that were selling a few years ago for $400,000 or selling for $600,000.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, Belleville.
Yeah. Belleville, Rahway, you know, many towns. And again,
Bloomfield.
Look, you know, it's so easy to hop on a train in pretty much any location in New Jersey, and you can get to New York. If you're down south, Monmouth County, for example, you know, which I find it to be fascinating, you can hop on a ferry and within an hour you're in New York.
Right.
Right.
Well,
not
Monmouth
for me.
County is blown up.
Yeah, it's great. Like, you know, especially now with Netflix there. But like let's say you move out of the Bronx or Brooklyn and you go to Linden, New Jersey, right? It's direct line, 5 stops. You're in New York within 20 to 25 minutes, right? Same thing with Rahway, right? And look, there's like New Jersey, we were talking about this the other day amongst like my core group of friends. Like New Jersey has a little bit of everything to offer. Like if you love beaches, right? When you hear beach, what do you think? California, Florida. New Jersey's got great beaches, like great shore towns, restaurants, underrated. New Jersey.
The water is kind of brown though.
A little bit.
The water's brown. It's cold as hell.
Especially when Joe goes in it. It's but New Jersey has so much to offer.
Yeah.
Good schools. I think New Jersey is a state with the most amount of parks, which I didn't know that.
Garden State,
parks,
baby.
That's why it's called the Garden State. You know, the beaches, the restaurants, mountains, we have so many trails. Like if you love hiking, New Jersey is perfect for you, right? So there's so much. There's a little bit of California, a little bit of Florida, a little bit of New York, all packed into one state. And it's a small state. New Jersey's not big, right? Very densely populated as well. So I can see why people, when they move out of New York and they come to New Jersey, and let's say they're renting for the time being, I can see why they fall in love and they stay. Right. And the commute's the same. Like if you're, like I mentioned before, it's not bad. You can, you know, if you work in a city, you know, like Nick does, 40 minutes, you know, 45 minutes if he takes the bus, if he goes by train, 30, 35 minutes, he's there. It's so easy to commute. If you like going into the city, after hours, right? And you want to go see the tree, you want to go eat at restaurants. If you get in your car after like 6:30, 7 o'clock, boom, you're there like within 20, 25 minutes, right?
Right. Depending on where you are. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, look,
Not from Atlantic City, obviously.
I think the number one reason is probably the education. If we were to like boil it down, if you're in New York and you have kids, it's that. And then secondary is your life is changing, your lifestyle needs are changing, right? You want a different type of lifestyle. You don't want that crazy commute, taking the kids to school and all that. I think it's just very, very different. So I think people that are in their mid 30s and 40s are, making the move. And that's, kind of the prime of their income, right? That's when they're making a lot of money. And, that's why coming to New Jersey is great, because over there, you're spending a lot of money. A lot of places are $1,000 a square foot over there. Here, if we see something at $500 or $600 a square foot, that's premium. Yeah. Like you could buy a new construction home for $500 a square foot. So you're paying half the money, and your tax rate change is not really that different.
I wonder if that changes in the future for New York, though.
What?
The
dollar per square foot?
The dollar per square foot as far as like the demand.
But New York has international money, right? Like New York has a lot of international money,
but what if that changes?
There's always going to be demand in New York.
I mean, New York is always
I saw it during COVID. We were like, oh my God, the city's dead. It's over, right?
But real estate did go down in New York at that time.
It did go down, but then it came back stronger.
Yeah. I guess people I think you're right. I think a lot of people, like a lot of foreign money, they need to park it somewhere, and New York is like the biggest hub. Right, it's either New York or California or Miami, right?
Yeah,
which is understandable, especially like the Latino market in Miami is very big.
Very big.
I have family in Brazil, right, and they're there. They own condos.
Well, it's also closest to them.
Yeah, it's close,
right? I mean, South America is
correct. Yeah, it's closer. I think
it's a lot closer.
But the vibe is very close to them. Like the atmosphere in Brazil, as far as the weather. Yeah. The energy, Miami has a lot of that aligned with it, so I can understand that. For let's say, if you're in China, New York is very close to that same vibe, right? Densely populated, big city. I can see the attraction for the Asian markets there as well. So, I think you're right. New York will always be New York, no matter what, no matter how the markets are in the future, for sure. You know?
So what do you think is going to happen in the future? I mean, is this sustainable?
I've been wrong so many times in the last 2 years that I'm tired of fighting against the market, to be quite honest with you. I've been saying that the market's going to go the other way around. And look, it is changing, but if you asked me in 2020, March 2020, that real estate was going to go up because of COVID, I would have said you're crazy. It did. Then if you said, Mike, real estate's going to go up in certain locations in your state 100 to 200%, I would call you crazy immediately. And
even if it was at 6.5% interest rates.
Yeah, and if coupled with that, I'd be like, you're really crazy. Right. You are out of your mind. You got to go see a psychiatrist, Right. And here we are, I feel like I'm the one that's got to go see a psychiatrist because I was so wrong about that.
It's not a bad idea.
No, it's not. I'll take that into consideration. But I'm done fighting the markets. I think that I'm just going to stick to supply and demand. And there's a lot of buyers. There's not.
Look, the thesis has, it has corrected in a lot of places. We just sold our place in Miami, and the realtor that sold our place, he was just like, hey, I'm really glad that you guys got out when you did, because the condo market is really going down and the demand is a lot less. And with all the new building code and all the special assessments, it's really changing.
I think it's directly impacted by the special assessments, right? Let's say if that didn't happen.
But it's still Miami. I mean, we're not talking about like out in the boonies in Florida. No. Out in the boonies in Florida, things have gotten impacted.
You're talking about Messyville, right?
Right. It's all supply and demand. Right, that's what it is. But in New Jersey, the demand is still there. I just don't know. It's interesting. In the near future, they're saying that rates are going to go down. I mean, Trump is like, every other day, too late Powell, right? Talking about you got to lower rates, and he's obviously, making some indication about choosing a new Fed chair, whether it be Bassen or whatever. And he's talking about lowering rates significantly because of the amount of debt that we need to refinance as a country.
Which I understand what he's trying to do. I think that's a smart move in his part.
Yeah. And it doesn't, obviously the short-term rates don't affect the long-term rates as much, but rates have ticked down a little bit,
Yeah.
And I always believe that the tipping point is 7%.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen kind of in the market, where people just start sidelining when the rate's at 7. You know, anything below that, we haven't really seen any issues.
But we haven't seen, like, here again, specific to our markets across the nation. Yes.
Yeah.
But even with the rates at 7%, which we had that moment where it was at 7 to 7.25, we really didn't see a lot of buyers, you know, get sidelined, you know, make a decision. Hey, we're going to sit this one out, because I think also what is driving the market here in New Jersey is, what if rates do come down to 4%? You know, our price is going to go up. So the average buyer is saying, like, hey,
I hope prices don't keep going.
Yeah. So the average buyer is saying, hey, well, if I sit this one out, you know, a lot of real estate agents are also preaching that message. You know, they're saying, hey, what happens if the market goes up as a result of rates going down? Are you going to be upset that you didn't take advantage, because you could always refinance? Right. So at this moment, like, my sentiment would be like, all right, if the rates come down, that's going to cause more inventory, and that'll cause some equilibrium in the market as far as supply and demand.
Because it'll unlock some sellers that are kind of,
because a lot of sellers are sitting on their rates.
Sideline. Yeah.
Correct. Right. But I just don't know. I just feel like New York is still, there's so much of an influx of buyers coming from New York. Right. And then you have Netflix that came to New Jersey, to Port Monmouth. And
how is that changing anything?
There's going to be a lot of jobs. A lot of people are pouring in from other states coming into New Jersey. So there's more, like, they suspect that New Jersey residents are going to, like, the New Jersey population is going to increase and not decrease. And I'm like, well, how? Because I'm thinking, like, all right, New Jersey's filled with baby boomers. They're going to get out of here, right? But no, they're anticipating that the New Jersey population is going to increase by 3% within the next 5 years, right? That's why you see so many.
3% per year, or 3%?
3% per year. 3% per year.
Per year. Okay, so that's a 9% or more increase compounded.
Yeah,
that's like 10%. That's significant.
And look, I would think that these apartment buildings would be empty by now. You know, they would be highly empty. They're not. They're all pretty full.
And they're expensive.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, the units right across the street were going for, I don't know, $6,500, $7,000.
The owner of Minnesota Vikings. Shout out to him.
Yeah,
God bless.
It's pretty crazy. I don't know. I think that there has to, everything is a curveball right now with everything that's going on. You know, are they going to lower taxes, income taxes? I mean, they're floating the idea of anybody making less than 150 or 200, that they're not going to have to pay taxes. I mean, oh my goodness, if that happens, forget about it. You know, then everybody in New Jersey is going to have more disposable income, and they're going to obviously, be able to upgrade or do what they need to do. And
that would be amazing if all taxes would just be removed, period. And just think about it. Like,
all taxes?
If all federal taxes and state income tax was removed, right? And you have way more disposable. I mean, you have 100% of disposable income at that point.
The economy blows up.
Right. What would that do to the economy?
I mean, it blows up. But
I mean, charge me whatever you want to charge me on tariffs. I don't care, because then that becomes a consumer tax, right? That's my decision on what I'm going to buy. But imagine if you have all your money and we can replace all of the federal income tax through tariffs.
Okay, now we're dreaming. Maybe you should see the psychiatrist.
No, I mean, there was a point in the U.S., I think, prior to the Prohibition era,
I know,
where that was 0%. The case. 0%.
They said the 3% was a temporary tax, and then it ended up
going
all the way to 37%.
Gotcha.
That's why the whole realty transfer tax is a big, it's a problem, right? Because they just keep getting more and more and more, and it's not good. But I don't know. Let's make some predictions, like, with the market. Let's think about it. There's a lot of older folks here, baby boomers, right?
Yeah.
They're certainly going to sell their properties. Most people aren't going to stay in New Jersey. We see a lot of people leaving
because it's expensive.
Well, yeah, and if you have money in your retirement account, your 401k or anything, you're probably going to a place like Florida or somewhere where you're not paying any state income tax on your distributions.
Correct.
Right? That's the kind of smart thing to do, right? You made your money in New Jersey, right? And now you're going to sell your property. You get a bunch of tax-free income, $250, if you're single, $500,000 if you're married. And then you take that money and you go somewhere else. You buy a house that's cheaper, lower maintenance, smaller, right? You take the rest of the money, you either invest it or you put it in a savings account, and then you get your distributions from your retirement accounts or pension or whatever, tax-free from at least the state.
Yeah.
So all those people that are going to be migrating out, they're going to be selling those properties to somebody here, and if interest rates do get unlocked, I feel like that will allow a lot of those people to make those moves.
Yeah.
So if interest rates go down, it is a very funny, thing to predict, right? Is it because the inventory will get unlocked?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of people say, well, housing, is going to go up, but if there's a lot more to choose from, especially from people that have a lot of equity, like baby boomers, right? I don't know if prices are going to go down that much, because people might also be like, well, how long are these low rates going to be around for? I don't think people really consider that, right? Because when rates were at like 3% and 4%, we're all like, yeah, like this isn't going to end. And then boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
And nobody thought that it would be at 7%, right? So now if it goes back down to 4, and how many people are going to be like, oh shit, I got to make a move now?
And there's another factor to that too, right? I think that the Gen Zs and millennials are a lot more involved today, right? I'm seeing this as a pattern, and I can
Involved
speak,
in what?
I can speak from my experience in Adriana's experience, a lot more involved in the decision-making process with their parents, meaning like, hey, don't sell. We'll take care of the property for you. We'll send you money, right? There's like, the rates are low. I don't think you need to. Let's tap into the equity. You can live off of that, or we can give you some money, right? I think that,
Like just being strategic, you mean?
yeah, I think that a lot of the Gen Zs and millennials are asking their parents not to sell their property so they can inherit that property and obviously continue to build generational wealth.
I know, but that's difficult, right?
Especially
if you're
Europeans.
moving, but if you're moving and you're 70 years old or 65 years old and you want to move
Like you?
to retire, and you want to move to fuck you, and you want to move to retire, right? You need the money from your house to retire with. So
Yes,
how would they not?
Some do, some don't. But again, it all depends on how much real estate prices come down. Let's say it does not come down too much. Let's say it's a 10% correction, right? And you have a home that you bought 20 years ago that you bought for $200,000, that's worth like $800,000. And let's say now it comes down 10%, right? So now it's worth $720,000, right? And you weren't expecting your home to ever be worth that kind of money. It's paid off, right? Who's to say that you don't just take a line of equity, let your kid pay for it? Hey, we're going to transfer property over to your name. We're going to get a line of equity. Instead of us selling this home for $720,000, right? Give us $400,000. Give us $500,000.
Well, now actually with the realty transfer tax,
yeah,
on houses over $1 million, that'll probably happen more on those.
correct.
Because there's more fees now that you have to pay.
Look, Adrian, and look, I'll give you my experience, right? I'm having a conversation right now with my parents. They have a large two-family, double lot in the Ironbound, a lot of value. House is probably worth like $900, but there's a lot of value to the lot, right? We can knock it down and probably potentially build 20 to 28 units, right? Because now the new zoning laws are very development friendly. Same thing with Adriana and us, having conversations with her mom and dad, right? About selling
That's a
property.
totally different story, though.
Right.
Keeping a property like that has a higher and better use.
Correct. But it's just like, hey guys, look, the way things are being done going forward is very different than the way things were done in the past, where I think a lot of people, especially the millennials and the Gen Zs, are thinking about the future for their kids. And real estate's a huge part of that, right? Yeah. So to say, hey, you don't really need to sell. Let's come up with a game plan where you're going to get X amount of dollars, right? You have your Social Security, you have your pension. Do you really need to sell, or are you just selling it just to sell it because that's what you're programmed to do? And a lot of older folks are programmed to, hey, let's sell, let's move to Florida, let's move to North Carolina. We buy something there, pay it off, and live our life. Great. But a lot of people, especially today, especially with, the baby boomers, think about it, their net worth has gone up drastically over COVID, which is like the first time, from an article I was reading, the first time that's happened, right?
What's happened?
Where your net worth has gone up for most retired people, where usually they live off, the sale of or the proceeds of their home. So essentially the net worth goes down. But in their case, it's been going up, right? Because the stock market's been outperforming. Real estate market, especially, it's just everything's up by a lot, right? 33% So I think that different conversations are being had right now regarding that specifically here. And again, it's specific to our market, New Jersey. Like if you have a conversation with somebody in Florida right now, like if you bought a home in 2022, you're underwater. right?
Really?
It's not worth this, especially like Tampa area.
Well, even with a down payment and everything?
It's not, well, I don't know.
Or you're just taking a loss?
You're like,
I mean, I don't know what the market stats are. I kind of ignore the nationwide stats.
No, Florida
because
specifically.
They're not really relevant.
Yeah, Airbnb market really was saturated there, caused the property prices to go up sky high, and now obviously the market has corrected itself drastically. In some areas, real estate in Florida has come down more than 40%, right? And it's not just Florida.
I mean, New Jersey stats, I mean, if you're a seller watching this or if you're a realtor, we've had, on average, in almost every county across the board of New Jersey, about 3% less sales in New Jersey. So when less people are selling, and this is year over year from last year, 3% less sales, but the average properties have gone up 3 to 4% depending on the county. The only ones that have gone down in price are houses that are 55 plus, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? Because it's the...
You know what joke is coming up next, right?
This guy.
But go ahead. It's interesting why.
No, because the baby boomers are the ones that are selling their homes and going to 55 plus. So, they're typically the ones that are selling their property on the market. But the 55 plus purchases have gone down about 7%. So that tells you that they're not, the inventory for 55 plus is going up. Less sales are happening in both, just regular homes. Less people are selling their homes. And the homes that are selling, they're selling for a little bit more money because of the demand, right? And there's less supply. So, if you're a seller right now, I think it's a good time to sell. If interest rates do come down, it is going to increase the supply. I don't know if it's going to increase the price. Affordability has gone down about 5 points in New Jersey. So it's getting less affordable in New Jersey year over year. So at a certain point, I feel like there's a tipping point. I just don't see the numbers continue. People are maxing out. Property taxes are tremendously high, right? And, you're buying a house for $800,000, but the last time it was purchased was $400,000 or $300,000.
Yeah.
At a certain point, guys, they do reassess properties.
Well, a lot of towns
taxes
are
go
reassessing
up.
as soon as you sell it, right? And it's in New Jersey, it's not just the tax mill, or rather the mill rate, it's the equalization chart, which New Jersey has it posted on the Treasury site, right? So every town values the properties in that specific town based on an actual specific rate, right? Some towns are 80%, some towns are actually above 100%. So if you sold your home, for example, in Rahway, New Jersey, right, let's say for 500, they would take the 500, multiply it times, let's say their equalization chart was 80%, that comes out to 400,000, and then, they would multiply it times their mill rate, and whatever that is, that's what it's going to be. They reassess that number every year depending on their deficit, right? The deficits are getting higher, for most towns here in New Jersey, which is, again, to your point, the affordability is going to become an issue as you go forward. Look, we don't have the crystal ball. Like if we were to take all the data, right, the data suggests that, hey, there's got to be a correction at some point, and it has to be coming soon. But I've also learned during
you would
COVID.
have probably said that 5 years ago.
I was going to say, I've also learned that during COVID, hi Madison, that during COVID, things that are common sense are not really common sense anymore when it comes to real estate.
And there's so many things up in the air where things are changing politically, right? Where some drastic changes are happening that it's very possible that, like for example, a lot of states are talking about eliminating property taxes in, people that are like 60 or 65 or older, so they could stay in their homes.
Let's take a break. Your daughter's here.
Maddie, come in. You can come in. Maddie, Daddy's doing a podcast. Come here. Come here. Your elderly father is doing a podcast. Come here, Maddie. Maddie, what do you think's going to happen in the real estate market? The market's going to go down. You think the real estate market's going to go up or down?
Down.
Down? When?
Tomorrow.
When is it going to go down?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Are you serious?
Yeah.
You guys better sell quick. All right, guys, my daughter's here. We're going to wrap it up. Follow us on Signature Sip Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. And tell us what you think about the market. Is it going to go up or is it going to go down in New Jersey?
Down.
Down.